For more than a decade, she's only been known as Jane Doe from Opelika. She has a name and she has a story, a very horrific and sad one.
On January 28, 2012, people who lived in a mobile home in Opelika, Alabama, found the body of a small child in their garden. No one knew how it got there, and police would be stumped for more than 10 years. Until new DNA technology found a family secret that wasn't meant to be known to anyone. So, what could have happened to the poor child, and how did her body end up where it did? Hi, and welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Let's have a look at the 6-year-old Jane Doe case. In today's case, we'll go to Opelika, Alabama, a place in the east-central part of the state. It is the county seat of Lee County, and more than 30,000 people live there. The Robert Trent Jones Grand National Golf Course is well known in Opelika. It has been the site of several national and important golf tournaments. Aside from this, the city is known for its lively art scene, old downtown, and other beautiful places to visit. On January 1, 2006, Amore was born in Virginia to Sherry Wiggins and Lamar Vickerstaff. Her mother, Sherry, was only 20 years old when she was born. Her father, Lamar, was in the Navy and was in his mid-30s. Sherry was told that Amore was smart and unique, so that's why she named her Amore, which means love in Spanish. But Sherry and Lamar's relationship got worse, and Lamar's family didn't like them together from the start. When their affair led to the birth of a child outside of marriage, Lamar's family was even more upset. Sherry left the flat she shared with Lamar in 2006 because the tension was getting worse. She took Amore with her. She had to take care of her daughter on her own, since Lamar didn't help her much, or at all. Lamar eventually married someone else and moved on with his life, which hurt Sherry. Sherry chose to go to court to get child support for Amore from Lamar, but her own legal problems got in the way. Because Sherry had been in trouble with the law before, the court thought she was not stable and decided that Amore would be safer with Lamar. The court also told Sherry that she had to pay child support to Lamar since he would be raising Amore. In 2009, when Amore was about 3 years old, she moved in with her father, Lamar, and her stepmother, Ruth. Even though Sherry lost control of her daughter, she stayed involved in her life and sometimes went to see Amore at Lamar's house. This changed, though, when Lamar was sent to Hawaii by the Navy and the family had to move. Sherry was hurt by the sudden split from Amore's mother, who was now even farther away. Sherry tried many times over the years to get control of Amore back through the court system, but none of her efforts worked. She was told at some point that she could no longer fight the case, so Amore had to stay with her father until she turned 18. Even though she was sad, Sherry kept believing that she would see her child again one day. This meeting would never happen, which was sad. At about 10:47 a.m. on January 28, 2012, we a resident of a mobile home community at 1775 Hurst Street in Opelika, Alabama, called the Opelika Police Department to say that they were scared. The person who called, Yvonne Johnson, said she had found something strange and scary in her backyard. The fact that her son had found a human head surprised them because it hadn't been there the day before. Yvonne led the police officers to the back of the mobile home when they got there. There, they saw the skull of a small kid lying on the ground. The police officers didn't understand how the head got there and wondered where the rest of the body could be. Detectives were called right away, and a check of the mobile home community was done to look for any more bones. Unfortunately, nothing else was found, and the search had to stop for the day because it was getting dark. Detectives weren't able to find some human remains until 2 days after the shocking finding. These were found in the woods a few feet away from where the head had been found. Along with the body parts, detectives also found a pink long-sleeved shirt with frills and heart-shaped buttons. All of these were gathered and sent to the lab for forensic research. Detectives put finding out who the child was at the top of their list of things to do. At an FBI lab in Quantico, where the bodies were taken, forensic tests and exams were done on them. There, it was found that the baby belonged to a black woman who might have died between 2010 and 2011. It was thought that she was between 4 and 7 years old. The medical test also showed something scary. The dead girl had broken bones that were already healing when she died. Her bones also showed that she had not eaten enough while she was alive. Not only was that, but there also a break in her left eye socket, which made police think she had been blind in that eye. They thought that this difference in her face would have been clear to everyone when she was living. In the end, her death was found to be a murder, and detectives started looking into it right away. They didn't know who she was, but they were determined to find out. Since they couldn't figure out what her real name was, they chose to call her Opelika Baby Jane Doe. Since that day, Baby Jane has been a member of our OPD family, said Shane Healy, the head of the Opelika Police Department. Detectives tried to make a DNA profile for the dead girl as one of the first things they did, but the state of the body made this impossible. When this didn't work, police looked through thousands of school and birth records, but they didn't find anything. There was no record of a lost child around the same age as the girl who died, and no one gave any useful information about her for a long time. Everything was quiet until 2016. In that year, a forensic artist from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children made sketches of what Baby Jane might have looked like before she died. The drawings showed her wearing a pink shirt with heart-shaped buttons, just like the clothes that were found near her body. The public was shown these sketches in the hopes that someone would know her. Several weeks went by without any clues, but then, out of the blue, in September 2016, a former Bible school teacher at a church called Greater Peace Baptist Church, which was less than 15 minutes away from where the bones were found, gave police important information. The woman who used to teach Bible school said that in 2011, she had seen a young girl who looked like Baby Jane. The girl looked a little dirty, and she had trouble talking to other kids, so she mostly just stayed by herself. The teacher couldn't remember the girl's name when asked. With this information in hand, officers went to the church and looked at photos from 2011. After looking at several photos, they found one of a little girl that was a great match for what the teacher had said. The girl's left eye was clearly misshapen, which backs up what people thought based on Baby Jane's remains. The pictures that were taken were a bit blurry, so they were fixed with special software. The following year, the pictures were shown to the public. In addition to the photo study, the detectives had the University of South Florida test Baby Jane's remains for isotopes. This method looks at the amount and kinds of isotopes in a sample to find out how old it is, where it came from, and what it is made of. After the test, it was found that the girl who had died had a lot of lead in her body. This suggested that she may have grown up in Alabama or somewhere else in the Southeast. Captain Jonathan Clifton of the Opelika Police Department said everyone has a certain amount of lead. It depends on where you were raised and what kind of water you've been drinking. After a few months, the police had nothing else to go on. But they never gave up and were determined to look under every stone. For them, the case was like a dark cloud that hung over the town. They knew that solving it would make them feel good. In January 2022, the Opelika Police Department worked with Othram Laboratories to test the remains using modern DNA testing. In the past, they had not been able to do a DNA test on the bones, but they thought that forensic science would improve enough to make it possible. Kristen Mittelman, Chief Development Officer at Othram Labs, said it was very hard to make a profile from the bones, especially the kind of profile you need to do genealogy. Using a unique method called forensic-grade genome sequencing, the lab was finally able to get DNA from the bones. After this, the girl's DNA was used to make a description of her, which was then put into the database. With this information, detectives went to Dr. Barbara Ray Vinter, a well-known and skilled genealogist, for help. Using the DNA profile that had been made, Dr. Barbara and her team at Firebird Forensic Group worked around the clock for a few weeks to try to find close cousins of the dead girl. In October 2022, after all of their hard work, they were able to find out who the girl's father was. Detectives were happy because they had finally found something that had been hidden from them for more than 10 years. It was a big part of the picture that was finally put together. The girl's father was Lamar, a naval officer who had a kid with Sherry in 2006. Detectives wouldn't find out until much later that baby Jane was actually the child of Amor, Lamar, and Sherry. When detectives looked into Lamar's past, they found out that he was still living and was about to leave the Navy. They also learned that he was stationed in Jacksonville, so they went there to tell him that his daughter had died. In December 2022, agents went to Jacksonville to visit Naval Station Mayport. They were hoping that Lamar would tell them more about his daughter, but this didn't turn out to be the case. After they met Lamar, he was strangely unwilling to talk about the little girl and dodged every question they asked him. Detectives were immediately suspicious, but there was nothing they could do at that time. The meeting with Lamar didn't go as planned, but the agents didn't let that stop them. Instead, they kept looking into it and found out that Lamar had a wife named Ruth. When they finally met her, she gave them no useful information, just like her husband. She told the police, though, that she didn't know who Lamar's daughter was or who the mother might have been. From that moment on, the police knew they had to find out who the girl's real mother was. Dr. Barbara and her team went back to work, and it didn't take long for them to figure out that the woman they were looking for was named Sherry. She was living in Maryland, which was also found out. Detectives went there and met with Sherry, who told them a lot. She told them that in 2006, she had given birth to a girl and named her Amor. But when she heard that Amor had been dead for more than 10 years, she was shocked. She told the police that the child's father, Lamar, had taken control of the child. When Lamar moved to Hawaii, she stopped seeing her daughter. When she tried to talk to Lamar, he gave her a cold answer and told her not to call him again. Sherry mentioned that throughout the situation, she had attempted to reach out. She mentioned that over the years, she had made efforts to contact them via email. However, her email accounts were consistently blocked. She also shared that she had dialed Lamar's number, which she knew was his, and he had informed her that if she were to call again, he would block her from his phone. Sherry continued to make calls, but Lamar remained true to his word and blocked her calls. At one point, he even stated that he would involve the police. Even though she hadn't seen her daughter in years, she told police she was still paying child support and would do so until the end of 2022. She showed them papers with lots of details about child support to back up what she said. When Sherry was done telling her side of the story, the officers' faces showed how shocked they were. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. When they got back to their base, they started contacting school boards and hospitals in the states where Lamar and Ruth had lived after they got custody of Amor. By doing this, They found out that Amor had never gone to any school. There was also no record of the couple saying that the girl was lost. This was enough proof for them to know that Lamar and Ruth were involved in her death. The couple was picked up in Jacksonville on January 17, 2023, and taken to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Lamar was charged with murder, and Ruth was charged with not telling anyone about a lost child. 2 days later, there was a news conference where Opelika Police Chief Chane talked about the case in detail. He also thanked everyone who had helped solve the case in some way. Amory Wiggins Chane expressed that in their entire career, they had never witnessed such unwavering commitment to a case. They were amazed by the collective efforts of both men and women working in unison to uncover a name. Many individuals within the police department shared a strong resolve, expressing their determination not to depart until they had discovered her identity. Now, that objective has been achieved, and they are aware of her name. Sherry, on the other hand, is thankful for how hard the police have worked on the case, and she wants justice to be done. Sherry expressed her heartfelt anguish as she described the tragic situation, emphasizing that the victim was just an innocent baby. She conveyed her sorrow at the fact that everything had been cruelly taken away from her. Sherry emphasized the significance of the victim's young age, emphasizing that she was merely a child. At this time, the case is still open, and detectives are still looking into Amore's connection with Lamar and Ruth. What will happen to Lamar and Ruth is also still unknown. Before she died, Amore was definitely abused and neglected in horrible ways. Thankfully, the people who did this horrible thing have been caught and punished. The cause of Amore's death is still unknown. But how do you think it happened, and how much do you think Lamar and Ruth had to do with it? Use the comments to tell us what you think. Don't forget to follow, like, comment, and share.